Moving on to our next question, Eleanor asked, what should I focus on first in chapter one if I'm feeling overwhelmed and stuck? Now, I think it's completely normal to feel overwhelmed, particularly right at the start of the journey with
Yeah.
chapter one. But Matthew, what golden nuggets of truth do you have for us here?
Yeah. So chapter one is a tricky one because chapter one holds a lot of sort of essential pieces to your dissertation, but not necessarily connected. Of all of the chapters, it is the one that flows the most poorly, in my opinion. It's the most sort of chunked out. And so here's what I always tell people: we're never starting chapter one at the top. We start in the middle. We start with the meat of chapter one. For most of us, and again, there's a little university variation, but for most of us, the meat of chapter one is our research purpose and our research question. So we want to start there. Why are we doing this research? And what is the question that we hope to address through this research? And if we can get those two pieces really locked in, and if you can really clearly articulate what you're studying and why you're studying it, then the rest of chapter one seems to flow a little more smoothly. Because the rest of chapter one is really explaining the pieces and parts of those two elements. So you might be talking about some theoretical elements and frameworks. You might be doing a little bit of background in your chapter one. Also, chapter one frequently has a definitions section. Definitions section is a great way to feel like you accomplished something really fast because really you're making a list of terms, you're defining and citing them. And that is a very rote activity. And so if you really need some just words on the page to get you some momentum, that's a great place to start. And then once we've got all those pieces, that's when we go back, we write the actual introduction, we start to put in some of the fluff around our dissertation, but we start with that meaty section in the middle. We start with those questions, with that purpose statement, and then we allow that to inform everything else.
I think those were really good golden nuggets, nice and meaty too. If we take it past that, once we've got that purpose and that process, what's next in the introduction? What can I focus on otherwise in the introduction chapter?
Yeah, so once we get those two parts together, we're going to the dissertation handbook for your university. That is the next place you go because every university has a slight variation on what goes in chapter one. So, for example, some universities want you to do an in depth theoretical framework in chapter one, but some universities want you to put that in chapter two in your literature. So, we're going to go to that handbook next. From that handbook, we're going to outline the rest of chapter one, knowing that the parts we've written are probably somewhere in the middle. So, we're going to have some headings up on top, headings below, right? We're going to outline the rest of chapter one. And then what I always tell my clients is I want you to gut check which sections do I feel most confident writing? And those are the sections we write next. So the dissertation is never written linearly. No chapter is linear when we write it, but chapter one especially is not a linear chapter. We're going to write those sections in the order that we feel most confident. Why are we doing that? Because that gives us momentum. And once we build that momentum, we're surfers riding the wave. We're just getting to the other side of it, right? So we're going to problem statement, research question first. We're going to go to the handbook. So we really figure out, I can't tell you how many clients I've had who've had their chapter one sent back because they didn't look at that handbook and they didn't have all the required headings. That is a silly reason to delay your dissertation process. So go to that handbook, get a thorough outline. Then we're going to gut check what feels right. What do I feel confident? We're going to do those first. Remember, it's not linear. We're going to do them in the order that feels best until they're all done.